Rowan nurses Selena back from burnout, and their renewed training reveals the true reach of her fire magic as they investigate a string of murders. Selena realizes the creatures stalking Gwendolyn are tied to the darkness beneath Aderlin's library. Their hunt uncovers Norak, a mortal army, and 3 terrifying, tainted beings serving a hidden master. In the Farian Gap, Manon Blackbeak faces the Blackbeak matron's fury over Abraxas's failure. Under the scrutiny of all 3 Iron Teeth clans, Manon and Abraxos finally conquer the crossing. Back in Rifthold, Kale, Dorian, and Aedion learn of the mass slaughtering in Calaculla and in Dovir. Each struggles with grief and rage, and Dorian begs Sorsha to flee Aderlin for her safety, only to find he's too attached to let her go. Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up Book Talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you'd give a classic in a literature class, just with more humor and less homework.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through 2 different literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing chapters 43 through 49 of Sarah J. Maas's 3rd novel in the Throne of Glass series, Heir of Fire.
For a complete list of episode and chapter breakdowns, please be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle BookTok for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about S.P.I.L.T. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
Hey guys, this is super important. I can't help you if you skip this section. Spoilers! This episode covers Heir of Fire with full context from the first 3 books, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. If you haven't read those, this is your only spoiler warning. Anything beyond Heir of Fire and other SJM works will be saved for our breadcrumbs and broomsticks episodes that airs this Thursday.
Perspective and interpretation. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We do not speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you have your own interpretations too. We love hearing them, so share away.
We barely speak for ourselves. Language. We use explicit language and can't help ourselves. We refuse to grow, so keep your headphones on and the kids away.
Themes. We will discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website. And if you want exclusive content and live streams, find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
Can't get enough of analysis? Make sure to check out the Subtext Society Journal, where we write think pieces discussing the romance and romantasy genre as a whole, the ongoing conversations in the bookish community, and insights into the publishing world. You can read our latest articles for free with no subscription required. But to receive the new articles in the future, make sure to subscribe.
Want to be published? Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com to submit your article for a chance to be a contributor.
Each week, we ask ourselves a question, and this week, we're asking, how are the writing techniques used in these chapters different, and what do they achieve?
Themes we see in this section are shedding past traumas and opening up.
We ended last week's episode with Selena burning out during Beltane. Making sure I said that right.
No one's here to correct you. So.
It's true. I recently found out another podcast has like pronunciation guides, and I'm like, you guys did your homework.
Yeah. What's that podcast? They're pretty cool. We follow each other. We're mutuals.
Between
the pages?
Pages and Friends?
Yeah.
Between Pages and Friends.
Yeah, it's 2 couples. They're pretty cool. They help you pronounce things.
Yeah. They do
on
their
this
homework.
Podcast. No, we do different homework. We say, what does the fire mean?
That is our homework.
Yeah.
Rowan saved Selena from burning herself alive, and He has now seen her scars from Endovier. The cherry on top of all of this, he's making her stay in his bed with him? What?
I've never experienced that problem before.
Now, there are multiple ways to read the start of chapter 43. I'm going to read the first paragraph, and then Jack and I are each going to take a whack at it. Quote, Rowan didn't let her get out of bed that day. He brought trays of food, going so far as to make sure she consumed every last drop of beef stew, half a loaf of crusty bread, a bowl of the first spring berries, and a mug of ginger tea. He hardly needed to offer any encouragement to eat. She was starving. But if she didn't know better, she'd say he was fussing. Now, from a Marxist lens is about power dynamics, and we talk a lot about food is power, and this is one of those moments. This is the most food Rowan has ever given Selena, and so for the first time since they've begun training, I feel like this is the first time he's really taken an interest in her ability to be healthy, be alive, be successful,
hmm
and that kind of continues in this episode.
Now, from a feminist lens, heteronormative feminist lens, this is Rowan taking on the quote unquote feminine role. He is becoming nurturing. He is taking care of her. He is cooking for her. And I think that it's pretty interesting because not only is Rowan taking on this feminine role, we know that he's taken on this fatherly training role. So now he's kind of stepped into these two parts. And you can see this where Selena is going to compare him to Kale and Nehemia in these chapters. So you can kind of see you're getting a 2-for-1 package with Rowan after he beats you up. So there's a TikTok I saw that I'm going to play at the end of this. There's a couple TikToks I'm playing for this episode.
Oh, okay.
So Rowan becomes a supporter of Aelin. And like I said, he's putting on different roles. But the important thing is that Kale had never been the one to has never been the one to heal her. He's had healers do it. Sorsha before we even knew Sorsha was Sorsha. And I'm going to go a little bit ahead to pull this quote, but you guys don't know the page numbers. So like, what do you guys know? It's maybe you do. Sorry. Quote. I don't want to insult them. Like, what if someone is that good? I shouldn't assume everyone is as laissez-faire as me. Quote. Oh, he was definitely fussing, and though it warmed her miserable heart, it was becoming rather irritating. Selena, Aelin, she wants to be taken care of. She wants to be fussed over. It warms her heart. I mean, no one's taken care of her since she was 8.
Mm-hmm.
Since she was 8. And people are starting to say that, like one of the comments I've seen throughout are people saying like, yeah, I may not be a fan of him, but she's happy, I'm happy. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
taking care of her. So
And
we should
that's
all
what she
be,
wants.
yeah,
Yeah, which
he's
I
finally taking care of her.
yeah, and I really like the point that you made, which is her lovers or love interests before Rowan have been bystanders
Mm-hmm.
to her pain
Mm-hmm.
and to the healing process.
Yeah.
And this is the first time someone is not only understanding of the pain, but is also part of the healing process.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to hurt you. And then I'm going to be with you while you hurt. And then I'm going to heal you from another hurt, but not the hurt that I hurt you with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, Selena can't eat anymore, and she tells Rowan, quote, "It pains me to say this, but one more bite and I'll be sick all over the place." The bastard just dipped the bread into the broth and held it out to her. You need to keep up your energy. You probably came so close to burnout because you didn't have enough food in your stomach. Now, maybe there are some power dynamics going on with him being the provider of the food and him forcing the food on her, especially when he also won't let her get out of bed, won't let her stop eating. He is acting as if he knows better in general, but also in the case of her body specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes across that he doesn't trust Selena to listen to her own body. And I'm going to save my rant for later because there are just some inconsistencies with Rowan.
I'm about to point out another inconsistency, but I'm going to take this moment and do an analysis of it and say, okay, he's being like, you don't, like, you need to eat. This is, like, you need your fuel regardless of what she says, because she did give him the warning
Mhm.
during the bonfire night and was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm hungry." And he was just like, "Shut up and keep going. We're almost done." So I also take this moment as potentially maybe him feeling guilty of like, "Ooh, I didn't let you eat last time. So now I'm going to shove it down your throat."
So that's exactly what I was not gonna talk about and
Oh,
save
I'm
for later.
sorry.
That's totally okay. We're talking about it now, it's totally fine. I agree with you 100%, and on one hand, you could view it as an inconsistency, him not remembering that he was an asshole about her being hungry before,
Mhm.
or you could say, this is how he communicates, he's not capable of saying sorry,
Yeah.
so he is acknowledging her previous truth, but is also weaponizing it against her right now, so it's
Well,
just a little problematic.
here's a moment of inconsistency. He calls it burnout, and it'll be referenced as burnout a couple times. And
Mhm.
burnout is when you've gone through your power.
And
That's what we
later on
And
yeah,
later on, he doesn't call it burnout. And
yeah.
there's never a moment of, "I've thought about it and I realized that's not burnout." So, that's a very intense inconsistency. Here she is getting hand fed by a Fey warrior. I, on on the other hand, was eating a Ralph's rotisserie chicken over the kitchen sink today while I was trying to do laundry and dishes, and my tummy hurts now. So,
Oh.
we have different paths, Aelin and I. Rowan explains why he's acting this way in regards to the Fae who are burnt out. Quote, "They're vulnerable, especially when they're drained and in pain. That makes people, usually males, yes, somewhat edgy." Interesting that she uses people.
I also thought that, because that's
As
such a
someone who's,
human word.
yeah, I mean, especially since like she's been very much like Fae,
Uh-huh.
males, man. I'm only noticing that because as someone who's writing their own romantasy, I'm really struggling with making sure I never say people because that's such a people
I
be humans.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was reading it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, so in general, this might be universally true, right? Like they're like, "Oh no, we have to protect the weak." And let's pretend that that is true. There is a sense of gender dynamics here, even though he's said that like we tend to sense the weak, but the fact that like the males are the ones that are protective. And, you could look at this and say, "Oh, look, they're kind and generous," but you can't have the sense of protectiveness without violence, right? Like, you don't say, "Oh, I'm really protective over them. When there's a threat, I tickle them." You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
you can't be protective and not have the counterbalance being violent. So, just kind of the natural world. What I mean, I'm just telling you guys things that we already know of this, is that the Fae are violent, but it's just kind of like a pretty picture that he's painting here. And he even goes on, quote, "Even if it wasn't in our culture, there would still be an instinct to protect the defenseless, regardless of whether they're female or male, young or old." Okay. Sounds it also sounds, first it's like, all right, you just like her, Rowan, shut up. However, I also feel like it's an attempt of justification and of violence and romanticizing Faye.
Mhm.
Because if this was true, if people were protective of the weaker, male, female, young, old, there wouldn't be violence in the world then.
Well, also, if they were feeling protective, they'd let the demi-fae into Doranel.
Talk about the weakest of them all.
Yeah, this is Rowan not understanding his own emotions and why he's being protective
Yeah.
and trying to explain it, because none of this is landing.
No. So this is one of those moments where I hope we as a reader can see that he's talking out of his ass and none of the
Mhm.
things that he's saying is like actually true. Cause wasn't Selena weak when she showed up? Wasn't she defenseless? You know what I mean? Like, and he
Mhm.
had no problem kicking her ass from being a drunkard here and back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Rowan. Now, as we progress into Rowan nursing Selena back to health, there's something interesting going on with the structure of the paragraph that I'm going to have to describe, and it's long, and I apologize, but it's just going to happen.
I think it's
Quote,
worth it.
I think it's worth it. Quote, while she ate, he made sure the room passed inspection. The fire was still high, parentheses, suffocatingly hot as it had been since morning, thanks to the chills that had racked her, end of parentheses. Only one window was cracked, parentheses, to allow in the slightest of breezes when she had hot flashes, end parentheses. The door was shut, parentheses, and locked, end parentheses. And yet another pot of tea was waiting, parentheses, currently steeping on his work table, end of parentheses. When he was done ensuring all was accounted for and no threats lurked in the shadows, he looked over with the same scrutiny. Skin, parentheses, wan and gleaming from the remnants of those hot flashes, end of parentheses. Lips, parentheses, pale and cracked, end of parentheses. Posture, parentheses, limp and useless, end of parentheses. Eyes, parentheses, pain dimmed and increasingly full of irritation, end of parentheses.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is talking right now?
Exactly. This is not the way that information has ever been communicated from Selena's point of view. And if it has, it's so rare because this feels absurd. This is one paragraph, and it's this proliferation of extra information in parentheses scattered throughout the exposition. So, how I've chosen to interpret this is that SJM, as the author, is signaling to us that when it comes to Rowan, nothing is truly surface level. Both in their own way, Selena is not good at revealing the truth because she's trying to be a tough soldier. Rowan is not good at revealing the truth because he is not in tune with his own feelings. And so, what this extra information through the use of brackets or parentheses throughout the exposition seems to me is SJM demonstrating there's always a layer of extra meaning or hidden meaning, and or Rowan sees through the surface of Selena's veneer
Mm-hmm.
and sees to the deeper truth.
I was trying to pick up context clues for this paragraph. And I think one of it is being that this is kind of a lighthearted, funny, right, moment. He's inspecting the fire. He's kind of being really obsessive with the locks, even leading up to it. She's kind of teasing him. And when you have moments like that, and when you have parentheses, I feel like the best way that I would almost describe it is like when you see someone on stage and they whisper to the side to the audience, right? So lips leans to the audience, pale and
Mm.
cracked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
Breaking
almost
the fourth wall.
yeah, there's almost kind of like a breaking the fourth wall aspect to it. Not that Selena's talking to us specifically, but it's almost the fourth wall of, honesty. So, an example of this, and I'm not saying this is what she was trying to say, it would be like Rowan looked over to notice her skin glistening, wan and gleaming from the remnants of those hot flashes, plump lips, pale and cracked. You know what I mean? It would be like that, but that's not what's happening either. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I'm just kind of like, what are we doing here? And I think for me, I wish I knew what the intent was. It
Mhm.
almost has hints of humor in
Yeah.
it, and then it's not executed entirely well.
And I don't feel like it's ever really done again. At least I
No.
can't remember it being done again.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, I completely agree. It's a little odd. On some level, it almost comes across as one of their silent conversations where Selena is internalizing her viewpoint of the situation and he is
Mm,
correcting her,
mm.
if that's how their mind speaking works. If they're even mind speaking or if it's all made up, I don't know. Anyway,
They're kind
so
of mind speaking. I had to look it up.
I felt like they were kind of mind speaking or
Well,
are
I don't know if
sending
that's a
impression.
spoiler. Yeah, it's just vibes. I have a comment on this later, so.
Okay. One more quote because I can't help myself because there's a lot of these here. Quote, the old language word was beautiful on his tongue, and if she had a wish for death, blah, 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 blah. I forget what word. Okay. I don't remember the context of this. He says something in ancient Fae, and Selena thinks, quote, the old language word was beautiful on his tongue, and if she'd had a death wish, she might have begged him to speak only in the ancient language, just to savor the exquisite sounds. Okay, Selena, hot for teacher.
And
It's
it
starting to
does look
show.
good on his tongue. Ice cream, you filthy, filthy people.
Anyway, there's going to be a lot of
Horny.
horniness coming through, and so we have to read it.
We got to read the horny. Speaking of horny, Selena is attempting to kind of play with fire here. You know, she kind of says, like, she had a death wish, but she's still dancing with it. Quote, "Tell me which of your little cadres is the handsomest. And if he would fancy me," Rowan choked. "The thought of you with any of my companions makes my blood run cold." She kept grinning, and he crossed his arms. "They would likely have very little interest in you, as you'll be old and decrepit soon enough, and thus not worth the effort it would take to win you." Damn, that's harsh. But right now I'm looking more at the fact that Selena's testing her limits with him. Her femininity, sex in general. Sex has not been something that she's really used as a weapon. She tried to use it with Archer and then didn't really
Mhm.
work, but she has used femininity in general. And I think that she's just kind of lightly testing it with him,
Yeah,
taunting him.
yeah, let's never mind that he's saying your only value is in your youth.
Yeah, I wrote that and then I took it out and because I could just hear the chorus of he's 100,000 years old and she's mortal, and I get it. There's like the power in youth and age. Yeah.
Well, and really what it is, it's a criticism of her humanity.
Yes,
Of because your life is so short and you lose your youth so quickly, you're
because
not
that's
worth the
your only
time.
value. You
Yeah.
lose your life quickly. Let's just not say youth.
Yeah.
That's
You
what he's trying to
lose
say.
the prime of your life fades faster.
I don't even like saying prime of your life. Your life just fades faster. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this way, guys.
I'm just saying what Rowan's saying. That's all.
And we must be better. So the conversation shifts between Rowan and Aelin, and it starts to get more serious. Rowan talks about Selena's scars and asks if she would remove them, seeing as some of them could be healed. And Selena talks about her time in Endovier, quote, "When they would let me out, so much of my mind had shut down in the darkness that the only thing I could remember was that my name was Selena. Selena Sardothian, arrogant and brave and skilled. Selena who did not know fear or despair. Selena who was a weapon honed by death." Remember before in previous chapters, Aelin talked about the separation between Selena and Aelin and how Selena is everything that could handle things that Aelin could not. And this is another moment of disassociation of
Mm.
saying, this is the person that can handle it. That's who I need to be. I've actually done that before with my very first breakup. You remember, Amy, you were there when I dyed my hair. I
Mhm.
dyed my hair for the first time and I was like, I've been dyeing my hair for a decade before, but the first time I went dark, and I remember thinking, I can't handle this breakup, but this girl can.
Mhm. Mhm. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's during this conversation about her past that Selena acknowledges her limitations when it comes to speaking about what she's experienced, particularly around the time that her family was murdered. Quote, "This despair and hatred and rage that lives and breathes inside me. It is a monster dwelling under my skin. For the past 10 years, I have worked every day, every hour to keep that monster locked up. And the moment I talk about those 2 days and what happened before and after, that monster is going to break loose, and there will be no accounting for what I do." So I thought this was an interesting take on Selena's attempts in both Throne of Glass and Crown at Midnight to keep her memories locked away anytime she began to recall them. I don't recall it necessarily coming across as a monster inside her.
Mm.
Maybe darkness, maybe something she wanted to avoid, but not necessarily a living, prowling thing. So I just want to acknowledge that because we are talking about inconsistencies.
I kind of look at it as the monster being her famous. Like
Mm,
she's never talked about it before. Absolutely. She's never been like, this monster inside me. And it's like, you've never really talked about it. But when she talks about this monster inside her, I think it's the part of her famous that would go
feral.
absolutely feral.
That makes sense. One thing I will say, though, is that Avoidance has been the tool that Selena has wielded to maintain power over whatever this monster is inside her, whether that's her feyness or something else, because it's all tied to her past. Or at least she believes that avoidance has been a tool that has helped her successfully navigate that. However, as we've seen throughout this book, avoidance has not been the answer when it comes to controlling her magic. Even though she avoided her magic because she was afraid, ultimately she's gaining control over it because she's learning to wield it and she's
Mhm.
learning to be more powerful in the process. So it stands to reason the same could probably be said of her inner monster, but that's a step she's not willing to take yet.
Yeah.
Rowan agrees because he calls her out, quote, I think you like to suffer. You collect scars because you want proof that you are paying for whatever sins you committed. And I know this because I've been doing the same damn thing for 200 years. Better to suffer, to be damned for eternity, and then Selena cuts him off. So I posed a question probably because I couldn't think of how to phrase a thought at the
Mhm.
time.
So you're
So
posing the question so that I can phrase the thought?
maybe. Is it possible that both Selena and Rowan have been focused on their grief and pain as a means of harnessing power, whereas what they're now discovering or what they will discover is that together, by learning to heal and grow, that will actually give them greater strength?
I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna have to be careful how I say it because I don't want people to know that I'm trying to do a one sweep all statement. It's a very nuanced statement. Pain is easy, choosing happiness is harder.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of those moments that choosing pain, and I'm not saying that when you choose happiness, you don't have pain, but it's a matter of chasing, like, what are you going to chase? Right. And
Mhm.
I think Rowan and Selena are good examples of people who've chased their grief and their pain. And they use that as like you said, like harnessing power as a weapon, as a tool. And I think what they're gonna realize is that when they're together, they're healing, and healing is harder, but it's also more beneficial, it's gonna be stronger, and it's gonna get them farther in the long run.
I completely agree with you. And I'm in danger of also making a broad sweeping statement, but pain is a consequence of what has happened to you
Mhm.
as an individual, right? And that's easy to experience because it can happen without your consent.
Yeah.
Happiness is a consequence of the effort you put in
Mhm.
to heal from that pain. And that is harder because it requires more action on our
Yeah.
part.
And there's different variation and circumstances for everything,
Right.
so we recognize that, guys, but, like, this is just a general broad statement that I find to be fair.
And at least true in the situation, probably, possibly, of Aelin and Rowan,
Yeah, I agree.
and in my own life.
Every day you just kinda have to choose to be happy, and that's okay. Just kinda
And
have
some
to.
die and some days when you choose to be happy, you're not happy.
No. No, fake it till you make it is a very real thing.
I used to hate that fact. I was bitter about it, but sadly, that is what life has taught me.
Uh-huh. And I think once you have it under you have the concept of it, you're allowed to have bad days, but that's because the bad day is gonna end at the day,
Yeah.
or the bad day isn't going to let you spiral completely, right? If you get used to choosing happiness and stuff. I love this idea of happiness and choosing that, especially this next concept of morality, because there's a lot of discussion of morality in this book in particular and in books in general. I know one of the books we talked about, Blood Over Brighthaven, that was a huge topic of it, is morality. And I personally think every single person should struggle with morality. I think
Mhm.
that morality should never be something that you feel like you have nailed down, and we should always be struggling with it.
'Cause to not think about it and ask questions is to be
Yeah.
complacent.
Yep. 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 We should constantly be like, is this okay? Is this the right move? So here is a quote. So this is Rowan talking to Aelin of like, you happy kid with your pain? Quote, Tell me, do you think you will go to some blessed afterworld, or do you expect a burning hell? You're hoping for hell, because how could you face them in the afterworld? Better to suffer to be damned for eternity. Okay. I mean, but like that's the thing is like, what is it to be good? Do we see
Mhm.
ourselves as good? Is that, like we can I talk about something I struggle with like constantly is this idea of like, am I being good? Do we ourselves get to define ourselves as good, or is this something that society gets to deem us as good? Does society get to deem us as good when society's fucked up? Is that why we have religion? Because we need some kind of measure of good, and that's what we've constructed to be something to tell us that we are quote unquote good and therefore make ourselves feel better.
Yeah, and, I think to add another layer to this is not only what is good, but do we deserve the opposite of good if we have not met somebody else's
Yeah.
immeasurable standard for good, right?
Yeah.
Does Selena deserve to burn in hell just because she was 8 years old and her family died?
Yeah.
Just because she's been trying to survive?
I mean, and that's like the great moral question. Like, should Selena feel guilty for choosing to survive
Mhm.
when her life has just been hell? It's not like she's been choosing to survive and is living a very frilly lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
just having, all the servants and luxuries every single day. That's not what's happening. So, where's that level of morality? But then should she feel bad of saying, I know I have the power to help people, and yet I'm choosing not to? So, there's a variation, there's a scale here. And I think that it's great that they're talking about it. But then we get this line. And I'm not saying that like it's a great line. I highly approve of this line. But it also just kind of like wipes away all of the conversation of like the heavy duty mental
Mhm.
gymnastics, but it's a great fucking line. So Rowan busts out, quote, "At least if you're going to hell," he said, the vibrations in his chest rumbling against her, "then we'll be there together." I mean, it's a great line. It's SJM being like, hey guys, they're a fucking team.
Yeah.
But Rowan sees himself in her. He talked about like saying, I know what you're doing because I've done the same thing. He's collecting scars. She's collecting scars. I would like to go back to the morality question that he was bringing.
And I'm sure he wipes it away because he doesn't have an answer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because if they are so much alike, his answer is, "I deserve to be miserable the rest of my life," because that's how he's been living the past 2 years, 200
Well,
years.
I think he knows that the answer is to push forward. And if he were to continue the conversation, then the answer would be he hasn't been doing the right thing.
Right, he's been stagnant.
Yeah. But then we get this cute moment because, mind you, they're laying in bed in a very platonic way.
So
Quote,
platonic.
so platonic. I don't know what I was trying to say or think. I am getting a headache. So my brain is a little mush, but I was about to be like, I've had more things happen with more platonic people than this, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, it does.
So we get this moment, quote, "He brushed a large hand down her hair and she almost purred. She hadn't realized just how much she missed being touched by anyone, friend or lover. I don't think people realize that being touch starved is real. Like, people need physical touch, I'd say. Regardless, like, I think everyone needs physical touch. And I'm also going to bring this back to Kale and Nehemia. I mean, they weren't big huggers either. Kale had to hold back on optics, right? Like, he couldn't go and start hugging her all the time,
Mhm.
petting her hair. They only had 1 week together. And Nehemia wasn't like, a big I'm a hugger. I've been trying to get us to hug more.
Yep.
Like, we
I've been
just need
touch
each other.
starved most of my life,
Oh,
so
yeah. I'm a big hugger. But then we also get some more of this they're in bed moments here, quote, "Her eyes burned behind their lids, but she leaned into his touch some more, even going so far as to put a hand on his broad chest, savoring the steady, assured heartbeats pounding beneath," said the friend to the other friend. Okay. But I just wanna like, this is just a really good moment of, like, key words to show intimacy, And, like the fact that his assured heartbeat, it's
Hmm.
steady. It's a level of confident and it's not going to leave her. Broad chest, it kind of shows, protectiveness. Like there's just these little key words that are being used to show a more lingering presence, like a more steady presence, a presence that's not going to just abandon her. That was language that was not used in the first half of the book for good reason, but I'm
Right.
just
Right.
pointing out key words that are used and just general vague descriptors. That goes a long way.
I think that's a good point because later I'm going to talk about the way he holds her
Mhm.
towards the end of this episode.
Mhm.
That's another description I don't think we've seen. Also, I don't think we have seen these types of descriptions with Kale or
Yeah.
Dorian.
Yeah. It's just like a steady heartbeat is what he is, right? Like
Yeah.
just a very comforting presence is what he is there. And, he's so big and broad and strong that he gives the illusion that something isn't going to knock him down, which is safe if it makes you feel safe.
Yeah.
Then we have this other moment here, which I really enjoy. I'm kind of talking more about her writing, SJM's writing techniques. So I'm just going to
Hmm.
read this little summary here talking about Rowan and Selena, quote, and he'd returned to Selena with chocolates, since he claimed to be insulted that she considered his absence a proper birthday present. She tried to embrace him, but he would have none of that, and told her as much. Still, the next time she used the bathing room, she'd snuck behind his chair at the work table and planted a great smacking kiss on his cheek. He waved her off and wiped at his face with a snarl, but she had the suspicion that he let her get past his defenses. This is cute. Like, it is a cute moment. But more importantly, I want to look at this from a writing perspective, and that is the fact that this is an efficient use of writing. It is a
Hmm.
summary of a scene. We don't have to see a scene necessarily play out, and we're getting a lot of growth, storytelling, establishing of dynamics in that for the writers out there. You don't want to use that concept all the time, but I do really enjoy when it's used. I personally think we could have had a lot more of this in the
Hmm.
first half of the book.
I agree. I agree. Because what SJM is signaling is this is a cute moment that shows their relationship growth,
Yeah.
but everything else about the scene wasn't necessary to the story.
And it doesn't have to be like specific to cute moments. It could just be
Right.
moments, right? And training. And it's so funny because these are some of her most powerful secure or not secure, solid chapters with Rowan and Aelin so far. And that's because they've been the most consistent. Like the majority of these chapters are with Rowan and Selena.
Yeah. Now, when Selena is back to health and she starts training with Rowan again, it's interesting to see a shift in Selena. And what that shift is she's starting to express envy about Rowan and his feyness or attributes of his feyness. So, for example, she observes that, quote, Rowan was standing so still that she envied him for it. I don't think she's ever acknowledged envy. She's acknowledged Rowan being preternaturally still because of
Yeah.
his feyness, but this is the first time she's expressed a jealousy over that fact. I think that's a sign for us as readers. She's embracing her own feyness. She wants to be more fey, and which is important because she's always shunned her heritage. She's always
Mhm.
pushed it away, and this is the first time we're seeing her being open to it.
Yep.
During her training, Selena also acknowledges that she no longer wants to give up control or power over herself. And she is determined to push through to regain control. And I feel like she can only come to this conclusion now that she's been fully honest about Endovier and being a slave, particularly with Rowan, because now Rowan understands and is on the same page with her of like, you can be in control. You don't have to be a slave to anyone or anything.
Yep.
Quote, he was right. He was always right. And she hated that almost as much as she hated the power that flooded her and did what it wanted. It was hers to command, not the other way around. She was not its slave. She was no one's slave anymore. It is interesting and I think deliberate on SJM's part that Selena is able to be this honest only because she's been honest with Rowan first,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's conscious or unconscious. However, I also can't decide if I'm bothered by the fact that it took his support for her to come to a decision that she wanted to be independent and strong.
Yeah.
But she also just turned 19, so I can't blame her.
I think I'm more disturbed at the fact that we've been talking about her being 19 this entire time and she just now turned 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was 18 this entire time.
Yeah.
I'm just caught up on that.
Yeah, I know. I bit my lip hard when I read that.
I saw that and I was like, are we still 18? We're just now turning 19.
Mhm.
There isn't a fucking 2 in front of you. You haven't even reached 2 decades.
Mhm.
You know, if we're going to have so many inconsistencies, just be like, oops, a year passed. She's 20 now. So I kind of want to go back to one of the things that I mentioned at the start of the chapter, and that involves some inconsistencies that we've been seeing. Quote, Rowan says, that was not the end of your power. You fell into the lure of the magic and let it do what it wanted. Let it consume you. And that's not what he's been saying. It's been, why didn't you tell me you were burnt out? You know, you need to eat. This is burnout. I'm protective over you because of burnout. All these things are because of burnout. We've already established that burnout means you have gone through your power. And this is just a note for writers, anyone working on their own book or anyone who's just interested. If you're going to have this, you need to have them at least identify as something saying, I might have thought it was burnout, but in actuality, it's not. Or just something, him admitting or saying something of, okay, it was not actually burnout. I've come to this realization. Now that
Mhm.
I've sat with you, I could sense your power the whole time. It was actually there. Just something for him so that it doesn't sound inconsistent from a character point of view.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, take a sip.
Take a sip and take some Tylenol.
All right, we are now in chapter 44, and we are back in the Farian Gap. And Manon is about to get walloped by her grandmother because Granny is embarrassed. You can tell I was feeling spicy when I wrote this. While the Blackbeak matron chastises Manon, she also uses her iron claws to physically hurt Manon, who just takes it. And it's peppered throughout the dialogue, so I'm just going to read the parts where it actually happens. Quote, Manon glimpsed the flash of nails before they raked down her cheek, not hard enough to scar, but enough to bleed. Her grandmother dug a nail into her chest, cutting through her red cloak, piercing the flesh right above her heart. Manon blinked, but that was all the surprise she let show. If Crockens were spying on them, another slice to the face, marring the other cheek. Her grandmother sliced a nail across Manon's throat, a scratch to set the blood running, and a promise. This was a lot of violence,
Yeah.
just because her wyvern needed training. And it's retaliation, right? It's retaliation because Manon embarrassed her grandmother by
Mhm.
picking a bait beast. In doing so, and in taking this beating from her grandmother, Manon has become a bait beast in her own way. She's being submissive. She's existing only to be beaten by her grandmother. So, in some ways, she now embodies Abraxos, which is
Yeah.
interesting because we're about to see a flip where Abraxos embodies Manon.
I like that a lot, that she's the bait beast herself now, which I can totally see. And I really like it. There's a lot of, I mean, we've been saying that they're very much linked and that he is her freedom of expressing herself and having a heart. But, I think it's kind of like she's obviously been dealing with this type of treatment her whole life. And I
Hmm.
think now with Abraxos, it starts to look more like a bait beast, being treated like
Hmm.
a bait beast versus before it was just your everyday punishment.
Right.
So, one of the parts that I really liked about the quote that you read was this particular one quote, her grandmother dug a nail into her chest, cutting through her red cloak, piercing the flesh right above her heart. There's so many layers to this. One, you have this idea of we have no heart, you can't melt a heart, like you can't do anything to a heart. So she's piercing the skin right above her heart. And then you also have the fact that she's cutting through the cloak, the red cloak. And we know that Manon likes this red cloak. We know that it symbolizes a spot that she's earned and that other witches have looked at her with envy on it. And so her grandmother's tearing through this piece of representation of her own success and honor, or whatever you want to call it, to cut to the part over her chest where her heart should be. So there's layers to this.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of hearts, we also have this moment here. Quote, "Has your heart melted?" This is her grandmother still talking to Manon. "No, it cannot be melted, because you do not have a heart, Manon. We are not born with them. We are glad of it." And she says this in the most like heartwarming chapter, which is really funny because I'm like, this was the sweetest chapter with the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys don't have a heart except for this cute little chapter here. But I think that when we imagine like the concept of like we have no heart, obviously they have a beating heart, otherwise they wouldn't be alive. But this idea of not having a heart, it means there's a lifelessness, right? Like you do
Mm-hmm.
not care. There is the lack of joy in life. And this is Manon embracing her heart and becoming more full of life. She did not have the passion for life that she did before Abraxos.
Yeah, I completely agree. So now it's time for Manon and Abraxos to make the crossing or die. And Abraxos makes it very clear he is not happy with Grandma Blackbeak. Instead of turning against Abraxos, because if they were truly witches without hearts, that's what people would do, right? The 13 would put down Abraxos because Manon should have a stronger wyvern.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, because they know of the connection between Manon and Abraxos, the 13 are prepared to fight everybody and to save Manon and her wyvern. Quote, "Every single one of the 13 was casually reaching for their weapons to fight their way out in case her grandmother gave the warning to have Manon and Abraxas put down. They were not born with hearts," her grandmother said. They had all been told that. Obedience, discipline, brutality, those were things they were supposed to cherish. Astrid's eyes were bright, stunningly bright, and she nodded once at Manon. What I love about this moment is that Manon is doing the mental gymnastics right now of, like, I understand what I've been told,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel true in this moment. But she can't
Yeah.
say that, right? Because she's not fully broken free. So what we have to read further into it. And so what is she not saying? What she isn't saying is she doesn't believe they were born without hearts. If they
Mm-hmm.
were born without hearts, the 13 would be glad for Manon to die because one of them would rise in ranks,
Yep.
right? That's what Astrid should be gunning for. But instead, Astrid is there and like the first one to step up and protect her.
But she doesn't have any friends.
But she doesn't have friends.
I love all these quotes, especially this one quote. So at this point, Manon and Abraxos are flying, they're plummeting to the ground. Thank you to the engineer listener who explained it to us, like why it's scary and dangerous.
I think this is right before they take off.
Okay, whatever it is. But yeah,
Sorry.
like be in the moment with me.
I
Uh,
am back. I am back.
I want to like strip away, like it needs to read like a teleprompter for you sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Wait, I can't remember what I was talking about now. What was I talking about? I was
You
saying.
were saying thank you to the listener who
Oh,
explained.
yeah, yeah, thank you to the listener who's explaining the plummeting to your death situation.
Yeah.
It makes
And
sense,
that you have to like swerve right back up in a dramatic U-turn against gravity.
and that's hard,
Yeah.
which I now understand. Thank you.
Yes.
Quote, "Manon thought it would not be so bad to die if it was with him, if she was not alone." Quote, so that's her thinking, and now this is her talking to Abraxos. "You are one of the 13, she said to him, "from now until the darkness cleaves us apart. You are mine and I am yours. Let's show them why." So yes, Amy, this is before they start plummeting down to the ground. Manon has accepted that they're a package deal, that they come together. And very similar to how Rowan and Aelin are being described as a package deal. And Manon, the more she faces death, the more alive she feels. And the more alive she feels, the more of a heart she has.
That's a great point. I think it either right before or right after they start the plummet for the crossing, Manon thinks, quote, the spider silk would hold. She would consider no other alternative. It's a fun quote for a couple of reasons. First of all, a reminder again, Manon is an unreliable narrator. What is she not saying? She is not saying she is afraid, and instead, she just rejects her fear.
Yep.
Also, just pointing out this verbiage for later because it's going to be mirrored in a moment.
Yep.
Take a sip.
Take a sip.
All right, we are now in chapter 45, and Selena has been sneaking out of bed with Rowan, which you'd think she would want to stay there, to practice before her regular training with Rowan. And while he does know this, he's been impressed that she's been improving by leaps and bounds, so he goes out to check it out. What he discovers is that Selena has been attacking the wards on the fortress, which throw back her magic at her, and then she is able to practice defending against. So he thinks this at one point, quote, he had to give her credit for resourcefulness. He wasn't entirely certain if his queen would be pleased with the demi-fae learning to use their powers in such a way. Though he fully planned to tell Lorcan, his commander, and the only male who outranked him in Dornell, just to see whether they could use it in their training.
Lorcan! Woo!
So, great. Rowan's giving her credit for something. But you're telling me for the hundreds of years he's been alive and been coming to Mistward that he and his people have never figured out that they could use the wards this way, and that it's a 19-year-old, barely 19-year-old, figured it out? And it's a better way to train than they've figured out?
I'm going to say it's because of their men.
Yeah, that's fair. That
Mm.
is fair.
Answered that.
If we look at it from a symbolic point of view, instead of me just being cranky, Aelin is demonstrating her resourcefulness, as Rome points out, which is important that we see moments like this because it's a key attribute to her success throughout her journey. What I also think is important here that Rowan kind of alludes to is she's not doing it in secret. The guards around the fortress are watching her do this day in, day out. By not keeping this secret, she's keeping the door open for them to also practice this way to increase their own power and to be able to defend themselves in the future, which I think is important.
I want to continue looking at it through symbolic point of view. In the fact that she is quite literally battling herself. Quote, she swore with her usual color as the walls sent the punch of ruby flame back at her. She managed to shield, but still got knocked on her ass. The metaphor is that she's literally battling with herself. Aelin and Selena are duking it out right now. She has talked about having all of this rage inside her and not knowing what to do with it. And here we are. We see what she's doing with it. She's able to use it and fight herself with it and work through her own trauma.
Good job.
Thank you. Go
That's
ahead.
called a psychological lens, guys.
Yeah. Take that, Freud.
Now, as we've been pointing out, SJM has been doing more things not only to show how much Selena is horny for Rowan, but they're also growing a bond and their compatibility is starting to show as well. Quote, and while she knew Rowan was aware of her early morning practicing, he never lightened her training, though she could have sworn she occasionally felt their magic playing together, her flame taunting his ice, his wind dancing amongst her embers. But each morning brought something new, something harder and different and miserable. Gods, he was brilliant, cunning and wicked and brilliant. Okay.
And horny.
And horny. So she begrudgingly appreciates the difficult training. She also finds it sexy that he's so cunning. And she thinks their magic is playing together. So lots of things going on here. She probably is in a good mood because she finally is seeing results from her training.
Yeah.
And realizes that having a teacher is probably better than no teacher at all. let's ignore the fact that her abilities have grown leaps and bounds because she was practicing by herself.
I will say SJM is very good at giving clues just chapters before,
Mhm.
because 2 chapters before this, SJM had the Rowan and Aelin. We didn't talk about it, but Rowan was like, "Oh my god, so, like, sometimes you can have magic people bond, but
Mhm.
only when their magic's compatible."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's super rare. It's super rare when magic's compatible. It barely even happens 2 chapters later. Our magic kind of was, like, playing with each other
Yeah. Yeah.
as if they had their own vibe. I don't wanna get it. Whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know that there's significance to that, right? I'm not gonna go into that. It makes me wonder if she is using this idea of the Keranon, because I
Mhm.
think that's what they're called, as an explanation for their attraction because she wasn't sure where it was gonna go.
Yeah. Well, we can't mention anything because otherwise that's spoilery.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything else.
Yeah, the Keranon thing is there as some kind of context clue, as some kind of something, but
Placeholder.
yeah, but it's there and their magic's playing. So I wonder if they're compatible.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is also this moment where Selena thinks a little bit more about Kale. Quote, "Sometimes, though, her dreams were of a brown eyed man in an empire across the sea. Sometimes she'd awaken and reached for the warm male body beside hers, only to realize it was not the captain. That she would never again lie next to Kale, not after what had happened. And when she remembered that, it hurt to breathe. That's all a girl wants is just occasional comments and to
Mhm.
show emotional development, to show emotional moments. I think that this is an example of SJM putting in the work. I know we keep talking about like consistency and other things, but I really do feel like this is where she's hitting her stride and some of her better writing is happening within these chapters. And that is like these little emotional moments that are documenting Selena's growth.
Yeah, I think it's important, as much as we've been harping on Sham's writing in this book, it's her fourth book
Yeah.
in this series, and ACOTAR's about to come out, 8 months later. That's a fucking masterpiece, by the way.
Yeah.
So we have to acknowledge that there are bits of good writing in
Yes.
this book. There have been bits of good writing in her other books. She
Mhm.
is growing as an author. Even if, in the next chapter, we could be like, "Ah, that was so inconsistent," or whatever the case is. That's just the nature of writing.
Yeah. Yep. And, I think the one consistent factor here is that Selena is avoidant and that her character is being extra avoidant right now. So the fact that she doesn't really want to get even more into these thoughts about Kale is consistent with her character and what we know of her at this point.
Yep, exactly. So it's a new day, and Selena and Rowan are out investigating another murder, and they find a weird substance under the fingernails of the victim. And they smell it, and Selena's like, "Oh my God, I know that smell from anywhere. I think I'm starting to put all the clues together." And so she tells Rowan about her visit to the depths of the library in the palace at Rifthold and the word keys. And during this, she starts to feel cold, where before she was very, very hot. She'd stripped down to her bandeau, basically her underwear. Quote, "A warm breeze wrapped around her, heating her bones and blood, steadying her." I have to read into this as Rowan's
Yeah.
wind,
Yep.
and that Rowan's looking out for her, but Selena doesn't acknowledge that he's doing it because either Estram's trying to be subtle or Selena's trying to not read into it.
That she just stripped and now his wind is touching her.
Yes. Because they're both topless,
Yeah.
which I guess could be symbolic of their willingness to be truly vulnerable with one another, but also
Horny
topless.
people just be horny,
Yeah.
you know?
Selena's appreciation for Rowan continues to grow more obvious. She thinks of him, quote, "He himself was a beautiful weapon forged by centuries of ruthless training and warring." Okay, so when she was talking about his muscular thighs very early in the book, it's grown into a full-on acceptance that he is a beautiful weapon. It does beg the question, though, is she attracted to him because he has been made into a weapon the same way she has been made into a weapon? Like, she realizes their similarities and for once is interacting with a person she's not afraid of breaking because they are the same.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. It's the same way that I think people go after what they're used to, like there's a reason why sometimes couples date someone who looks just like that could be their own brother or sister, right? Then there's other reasons why someone might date someone that looks like their mom or their dad. Like there's a certain level of familiarity. I don't know what that says about me and the funny looking ass guys I've gone for, but actually I do know. It's been an evolution. It all started with someone having the faintest hints of tuxedo mask, and it's just been downhill since. Ah. I'm going to get more into healing, but sexual healing. In this case, though, it's more of an appreciation of sex. So, and this is probably like the most that Selena has actually very much blatantly thought about sex
Mm-hmm.
because, Our Lady is now a woman, you know, she has feasted upon
Graduated.
mortal pleasures. So she starts to admire Rowan's body. And there's a couple of quotes I'm going to take us through. So this is a journey. Quote, revealing his broad back, muscled and scarred and glorious. Fine. Some very feminine innate part of her appreciated that. And she didn't mind his half nakedness. Girl, neither do I. And that's because Selena is embracing sex. I'm not going to call her embracing femininity. It's embracing desires. I do think that there's a certain power to women embracing sex. I think that is an evolution of such of embracing femininity is to embrace sex as well. But, I'm making very broad general statements. You don't have to be embrace femininity and embrace sex. I just think that there should be a very large hand holding of or shaking of hands between the two so that women can feel more comfortable doing whatever the hell they want. There's also in this moment, because all of these are within paragraphs of each other, there's a lot of comparing Rowan to Kale. Quote, she followed a path of his tattoo down his face, neck, shoulders, and arm. Such a stark, brutal marking. Had the scars on Kale's face healed, or would they be a permanent reminder of what she'd done to him? Now, it's natural to, start to compare people a little bit, being like past guys, present guys. But it's also just not like a normal, comparing of two men. It's comparing the fact that Kale was not a warrior, is still not a warrior. His only scars to claim are the ones that Selena gave him versus Rowan, who's been out, as she called, warring,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because it's like whoring. And then we have this other quote. This is on the longer side, but we're going to bear with it. Quote, she watched him sidelong, the way the water gleamed on his skin in the starlight. It was a damn good thing Rowan had no interest in her either, because she knew she was stupid and reckless enough to consider whether moving on in the physical sense might solve the problem of Kale. No one could fix, not even if she took Rowan to bed. There were some days when the amethyst ring was her most precious belonging, others when it was all she could do not to melt it down in flame of her own making. Kale had been what she needed after losing Sam, after surviving the mines. There's yes, sex won't heal things. However, it's a great start. There's a reason why they say if you can't, best way to get over someone is to get under someone. And it does help. Now, I do want to look into this in the fact that jewelry plays a really big part. We talked about this ring before in previous seasons being almost like a purity ring, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's being talked about in contrast to these, dark sexual thoughts that she's happening. And there's a contradiction between this purity ring, this ring that was associated with Kale, with this potential of Rowan and sex. And there's an understanding that each relationship plays into it. Like, I really like the idea that walking out of a relationship, accepting the fact that it played its role
Hmm.
and it's done now.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rowan's relationship with her will help serve its purpose.
Yep.
Moving into chapter 46, Selena, by the way, has been lacking in weapons because remember, she has to earn them back. And she has to ask Rowan to give her weapons because, there's murderers about.
Hmm.
And he begrudgingly lets her borrow some. Quote, he'd deigned to give her a few of his weapons that morning as a precaution. I just don't understand with all these demi-fae being killed why he doesn't give her weapons back permanently. Of course, so I have to be thinking, why is this the case? Why is SJM deciding that this is the way things are? Is it the fact that Rowan doesn't want to give Selena back her weapons because it also gives her permission to leave? Is
Yeah.
he perhaps too selfish to let her go?
Yeah. I think it's definitely that one. I think it's definitely not wanting to let her graduate, because that would mean she's ready to go to Maeve, and that would mean handing her off to someone that he knows is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot that part.
Sorry.
For me, it's like, he's keeping her down. And no, it's like, no, Maeve is dangerous. Maybe she shouldn't go to Maeve.
No, she shouldn't.
There are a couple of instances while Rowan and Selena are out on their hunt for the murderers that we get some subtle deer imagery. And I always appreciate the deer imagery because Esham, is consistent, at least when it comes to deers, stags, Terracin, Selena,
Mhm.
Aelin. And it is chef's kiss. Quote, she lifted her chin and said, then right now, we'll go down to that beach and unleash our magic on them all while they're sleeping. She turned, even as part of her soul started bucking and thrashing at the thought. It's a nice little touch. So Rowan leaves Selena behind to go investigate these caves down by the beach where they have discovered that some of these men might be hiding out that have come all the way from Aderlin. When he returns to give Selena the news that, yes, Norak is here with some creepy ass weird creatures and 200 men, he also tells her that there is a demi-fae that Norak and his men have trapped in the caves. And though Rowan tried and failed to cut off her air supply to give her a merciful death, he explains that, quote, they've fed on the very life of her, trapping her in her mind, making her relive whatever horrors and miseries she's already encountered. Selena responds, quote, it truly fed on me that day in the barrows, she whispered. If I hadn't managed to escape, it would have drained me like that. So, because I look at things through the Marxist lens, I have to point out that the act of consuming the demi-fae has been providing Norak and his diseased, tainted men, whoever they are, with power, which has effectively made all fae and demi-fae prey to these creatures, which is important for later in the episode. What Selena is realizing in this moment is just how close she came to death long before her magical burnout or enthrall trance meant with her magic. And you know what? It's all because of Rowan.
Mhm.
Notice how Rowan does not say, you know what? I really should have never sent you to the barrows.
Yeah.
It really was my fault that you almost died.
Yeah.
So I have to trust he's internalizing his mistakes because he never says sorry for anything.
No.
But it doesn't stop me from being bitter.
Oh, I think we can be better. I can forgive a lot, but you just need to apologize. Like, think about one of the things of someone who's apologized to me this year, Amy, a very big one. And if I can move forward, like I can move forward with a lot of things with an apology. You just say sorry. So when someone can't apologize, I absolutely hate it because I am capable of forgiving a lot. When it comes to characters like Rowan, like I really notice it and I do not like it.
And it's such a, like, power thing, right? It's
Mhm.
because people are like, "Well, if you say sorry, you're submitting your power and you're not you can be sorry without saying sorry,"
No.
and all these and I'm like,
Yes,
"Just
like,
it costs me nothing to apologize."
it really doesn't. Like, everyone should be apologizing twice. That's one with their words, one with their actions, and you need both. Like,
Yep,
that's the thing. An apology cannot just be one, it has to be both.
yep. Otherwise, it's null and void.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very big into just say sorry, especially since I am very capable of being like, "Okay, let's move forward."
Yeah.
I want to take a beat to talk about their silent conversations. Also, listener, I'm going to apologize right now. Whether you're watching or you're listening and there's some rustling around, my mic stand is just not having it, and it has broken me and this podcast. So I apologize now for any kind of weird noises you might be hearing. Okay, so I want to take a beat to talk about their silent conversations. And there's been a lot of these. We haven't even talked about the majority that we have seen, but I'm going to
Mhm.
talk about this specific one because it is so elaborate. Quote, his green eyes flashed, but she held his stare. It fed on me, and this is like now the following is all in their mind. It fed on me and would have turned me into a husk, she silently said. We could easily meet that fate right now. You were unprepared, he seemed to say, and I was not with you. This is insane. I faced one of the defective ones too, and it almost killed me. Scared, princess? Yes, and wisely so. I don't want to like spoil future things, but we do know like they're not mind speaking. This is not a I'm in your brain talking. I get that it's meant to show their bond. I get it's meant that they're, in sync with one another, but this is such an elaborate one. This is so intense. And I think like Amy, you and me, I think our longest conversation is like you could look at me and I go, "Okay, sure." And I know the look you're giving me is a look of, "Okay, I have an idea and it's going to be crazy." And then I'll just immediately be like, "Okay, cool, I'm with you," or something.
And it's also after 15 years of seeing me make that face,
Yes.
and
A-
it's you've learned a pattern.
And that's the longest conversation. This is the I mean, I'm sure we can have moments you and I can go a little bit back and forth, but this is a full-fledged fucking conversation. And I just feel like it's one of those moments where for me it went a bit too long, but I get what it's meant to do and show.
Yeah, it's not reasonable without explanation, and there's no explanation or questioning of what's happening right now when they're silently having a conversation.
Why isn't she asking him, is this weird? Is this normal? Is this a
Right.
Faye thing?
Yeah. Why
Because it's strange.
it's strange. It's also why isn't he questioning?
Yeah.
Like, how did you know that I wanted you to do that? Right? Well, you told me silently. And he'd be like, "What do you mean I told you silently?"
Yeah. Even you and I've had to do that before where it's like, oh, I can tell with your face.
Mhm.
Or like, what was it? Where I'm like, oh, you're nervous. Your left mouth is
I'm
doing a
speaking
thing.
out of
Your
the
left,
side of my
yeah, and
mouth.
it's like I can tell when you're like, but again, one, you'll ask me, how do you know that? Two, I'll express it. Three, 15 fucking years of friendship there. And I think it is strange. Like, that's the thing. You can't say that this type of connection is rare, that, like, obviously they're connected. Obviously they're, super tight. But there's just so much to this that you have to have them question it once.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. So, because SJM makes it seem like they had this really elaborate silent conversation, it makes me want to hold Rowan accountable.
Yeah.
And I'm going to because SJM has done nothing to explain otherwise. So, what am I talking about? Selena and Rowan at this point have realized that one of the three creatures in the collar is stalking them. And as Jack just read in her quote, Selena is trying to convince Rowan, like, hey, we need to run. We will die. And he refuses because he thinks they can fight. Selena convinces herself that Rowan is correct. Quote, "But he was right. These were their woods, and they were warriors. This time it would be different." So she nodded, a soldier accepting orders, and did not bother with farewells. Now, this bothers me
Hmm.
because Selena is so intent on being a good soldier because
Yeah.
Rowan called her a good soldier, and she has to keep that up to be in his good graces. I'm inferring here. It's obviously not said anywhere. It's the only way that I can explain the fact that we keep seeing over and over how
Yeah.
Rowan makes poor decisions, especially when it comes to Selena, and she never questions it.
We've yet to see him make any smart decision. He misjudged Selena. He got into a vow with Maeve that we know that there's a level of regret there. We know that he didn't understand burnout. We know that he's now doing this and, like, oh, it's fine. You can go into the woods. Oh, it's fine. We'll handle this. Like, he even brought what's his face to be held prisoner over the frozen ice,
Yeah.
right? And then there was a monster underneath that. He decided not to check the lake to see if there was a monster in or the legends inside there. Like, there has not been a single thing that has shown us that Rowan has good instincts.
Yep. Completely. I think you listed all of them. I am looking through my list.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even look at your list.
That's okay.
Oh, you did have that. I am so sorry.
It's totally okay. I don't care.
I was just, oh, you set yourself up for success and I took it. You guys,
It's
that was
okay.
all Amy. That's the thing is you set it up too well that I ran with it.
I'm really, really glad that you felt so as strongly as I did and you were able to list them all.
Well, that's funny is I hadn't even thought of that until you said it and then I was like, yeah, and then he did all these other things. As I looked to it, you guys, that was all Amy. Everything I just listed, she literally has it listed here. I try not to look at the notes. I try to just
It's okay.
listen to you.
It's totally okay.
She's the
Because
genius.
no, it's fine. Here's the thing is we can both remember every instance because in every instance Rowan made a mistake and he never apologizes for it.
Yep.
He makes an assumption. He assumes that the lake is safe. It's not safe. He assumes the barrows are safe. It's not. He assumes Selena can control all of her magic and ignores her when she says she's hungry. He's choosing to face a creature that she almost died encountering once already.
Mhm.
I understand that a lot of these are not predictable things, but it still begs the question why she trusts Rowan because his pattern is pretty damning.
A pattern it does make. Why should the reader trust Rowan?
Right.
That's the thing, is that the amount of people who have thrown their love and dedication to this fake man, and just the sheer amount of like, well, he didn't know about Aelin of her truth because of Maeve, and he didn't know. Like, you can come up with an excuse for every single one, but after this many things that he didn't know, it's still like these are just excuses. This is now a pattern.
Also, if in the same book, Kale made all these same mistakes,
Oh,
would you defend Kale? So it's only at the end of the chapter that it dawns on Selena that maybe this isn't a good idea because, quote, these things were so good at their work, it seemed the king had thought only 3 were necessary to wipe out the entirety of Wendellin's forces, by the way. And so you're going to face one?
why doesn't a warrior think that? Why doesn't a warrior
Yeah. I have
have
more to
more thoughts?
Yeah, I have more to say on this. So we're going to go into let's take a sip. Never
Let's
mind.
take a sip.
Well, let me get into my rant.
Okay.
We are in chapter 47. And so now, because Rowan hasn't signaled her, Selena's worried Rowan's in trouble. Quote, she lifted her long dagger to angle it in Rowan's direction to signal him to indicate whether he was breathing. He had to be. She would accept no other alternative. Sound familiar?
Phenomenon.
Do, 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 do.
Do. Abraxos. Do, 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 do.
Phenomena.
No. It also shows just the reliance on Rowan for her own survival. And I don't mean that in the sense like she needs him to fight their way out of it, but
Hmm.
starting to depend on another person's life, Selena.
Well, I think to your point, it's not about her physical survival as much as it's about her mental survival. Like, she
Yeah.
is emotionally dependent on him.
Yep.
And that's why she can't accept any alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the beautiful creature that stalks her is the beautiful male from the Barrows earlier in the book, and he is the perfect predator. In addition to being attractive, he is able to enthrall Selena instantly. Quote, his smile widened, revealing two white teeth. Two as in too many, not two as in only two, number two.
Rain.
And he reached a hand for her throat, so gentle, those icy fingers as his thumb brushed her neck, as he tilted her face up to better stare into her eyes. Your agony tasted like wine, he murmured, peering into the core of her. It's very sexual. It's very
Yeah.
hot.
Just like the
But
first time she saw this monster thingy.
yeah. And, you know, just reemphasizing Fae, demi-Fae, their prey to this creature and those like him. But he explicitly calls Selena's agony wine instead of her being like a scared animal because she's something to be savored. She's an
Mm-hmm.
indulgence. And to me, that is tied to her magic because her magic is potent, her magic is strong. He's
Yeah.
feeding off of that.
Yep. There's just something again about like talking about the youth. I
Mm.
don't know. There was just like earlier with Rowan being like, you're going to be old and they won't be interested in you. And then this is like, they're young and dangerous and beautiful. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, calm down. However, if this was an evil thing that was old, I think I'd be more annoyed with it. So I think I was just feeling feelings. Also, I had read this right after a note from our Brimstone like I had just read something in Brimstone
Oh, that
that
you were
annoyed
upset
the
about.
shit at it annoyed me, and that's the one I told you where I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I actually don't like that." And I brought that energy to this that
Makes
and I know specifically like as I was like highlighting it, and I'm like, "I know what I'm feeling right now."
So, like I was saying in the previous chapter, Rowan keeps making mistakes. So, when he comes to rescue Selena from the creature, she thinks, quote, because in the dark, with limited weapons against an enemy who did not need blades to kill them, even Rowan was outmatched. A true warrior knew when to walk away from a fight. Excuse me? In your silent conversation, you warned him that this wasn't a good idea, and he didn't listen.
What type of walking away was ever done?
How is he a true warrior if he's just now walking away?
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was counting on Selena not getting enthralled. Maybe he didn't realize how quickly Selena would get enthralled.
I think that's the case, and which, everyone would be like, "He didn't expect that to happen." It's like, yeah, I'm it's fair. He didn't expect it. It's not like she was enthralled once before. That's me being sarcastic. She was enthralled before.
No, I know. This
Yeah.
is my, like, the fuck face. So I will stop now. We're going to move on to another deer image that emphasizes the prey versus predator chase that's happening. This is at the point where Selena has gone to a cave to attract skinwalkers, and she's now running away from the skinwalkers towards where Rowan and the dark creature are hanging out. Quote, ankles and knees barking in protest, she leapt and ran, the skinwalkers closing in around her like wolves on a deer.
Knowing that Akatar was written around the same time as this, it feels like a nod to Akatar. Even the fact that, I mean, it's not happening in snow, but I can just picture it in snow. You know what I mean?
Mm,
The wolves and deer reference is just so Akatar.
it's so Akatar. The other thing that it made me think of was the Naga in Akatar.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
made me think of that scene specifically
Yep.
because it's also a moment when Feyre started realizing she was hot for Tamlin.
Yep.
And what happens here?
Good point. Good point.
When Selena and Rowan have successfully tricked the creature and the skinwalkers are colliding with the creature and they're fighting, she and Rowan hide in a tree. In order to hide Selena's scent so that the creatures don't, come after Selena, not only does Rowan have his magical wind blow away her scent, but he also wraps his body around her. This is the moment I was talking about earlier. Quote, she pressed her face into Rowan's chest. His arms were solid as walls, his assortment of weapons just as reassuring. So this is the thing that we were talking about earlier where he's a steady presence. She feels comfort in his presence. She also just compared Rowan to a weapon not that long ago. So his body and his weapons are like double protection, double reassuring. But also the Akatar similarity with the Naga scene, because
Yeah.
that's when Feyre first notices like the blood and
Yeah.
how physically fit Tamlin is. And isn't there something to do with a knife in that as well?
Just like all around deadliness. I mean, now here she is cozied up with Rowan in his arms while they listen to
The
the
fighting.
the monsters just fight each other. Like there's this discovery of passion
Yes.
amidst blood and gore.
Yes. And we do talk about this in the Akatar season. I think it was
And it's
chapter.
not a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler, but SJM consistently, and to your point earlier, Jack, with the Fae being a violent species, violence and love, or
Mhm.
violence and passion, violence and sex, they all go hand in hand.
Yep.
And this is just replaying, and actually, this is probably the first time compared to all the other times we see in her writing that we see violence and
Mm.
attraction go hand in hand.
There's been stuff in previous seasons with Throne of Glass where there was like Selena has had
Mm,
violence and attraction, but not to this point. Not
not
to
to
this
this
degree
level.
where she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god." When you say he's built his body from warring, that's killing people.
Mhm.
It's not just like battles, it's killing. So she's
He's a
admiring a body, his body, that has been made to kill others. There is an acceptance of attraction and death. That
yeah,
is the link between that Fae and that SJM has done, and that's the first time that's happened to that degree
yep.
in this series.
Because remember, Kale's only killed one person and he got sick
Yeah.
afterward.
Loser.
Take a sip. Moving on to chapter 48. Rowan and Selena go back to Mistward and they bring back news of Norok and his forces. And so the fortress of Mistward begins to prepare for battle and sends out calls for help. Among the requests that go out, the royals in Varys, I can't remember how to pronounce the capital's name. Anyway, basically, Selena's relatives are reached out to and they agree to provide support. They don't know Aelin is there, obviously. Selena, though, knows what's going on. Quote, it was a relief, Selena thought, but a bit of a terror, too. If Galen showed up, if any of her mother's kin arrived here, she wouldn't care, she told herself. There were bigger matters at hand. And that's what I call growth. She's
Yeah.
learning to not be afraid of her past catching up with her because you know what? There are bigger fish to fry, aka Norok.
Yeah. And this is just another step closer to bridging the gap between Aelin and Selena.
Yep.
Selena thinks about everyone in her past nowadays. Like, it's just all coming up, and she just can't stop comparing. When she's thinking about Rowan, quote, working with him was so effortless. There was no judgment, no need to explain herself. She knew no one could ever replace Nehemia, and she never wanted to, but Rowan made her feel better. Interesting. Okay, there's so many things that I find interesting. First off, when did you ever work with Nehemia? When was there no judgment? Nehemia judged you left, right, and center.
Well, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, but the idea of no one could replace Nehemia, it's kind of it's funny because it's like, well, she's like Rowan is actually a much better replacement for Nehemia because Nehemia sucked. But the thing is, we've gotten the comparisons between Kale and Rowan, and now we're getting that between Nehemia and Rowan. And it's showing that Rowan is taking on multiple parts, right? Like he's there to be a lover and a friend,
Mhm.
as partners should be friends too, although they should not be your only friend.
Right. Exactly. And I do think, like, on some level, Selena realizes that, like, things were difficult with Nehemia. They fought often, they disagreed often, she judged her often,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's not said directly, right? It's only implied in the comment, "But Rowan made her feel better,"
Yep.
right? Implying Nehemia didn't make her feel better. Nehemia couldn't have made her feel better even if Nehemia was still alive.
Yeah. And I love that because you can interpret he made her feel better as in he made her feel better from all the mourning and death she's had to deal with, or he made her feel better than Nehemia ever did in
Yep.
their friendship.
Yep. Exactly.
Now, for the first time, though, Rowan is the one who disappoints because he starts talking about his pledge to Maeve, and Selena is just kind of not feeling it. And he gets upset and he says, quote, "Don't look at me like that with that disgust." So we're getting a peek at Rowan's shame, at the shame beyond his own mate's death. Like we talked about, like he's ashamed of how his mate died, but this is true shame. Like this is something that he did. He did not kill his mate. Other people did, but he did pledge himself to Maeve. And that's something that he is definitely, feels bad about. And Selena even then has to take a moment before she walks away from him. Quote, "So she left Rowan in that hall, but it did not stop her from wishing she could keep him." And I feel like this is great evidence of character growth. And that's the fact when you know to walk away from someone when they can't change, they're unable to change something or other. But like this just felt very significant as someone who, of like, okay, I will walk away because you can't change someone. I think it's a powerful moment. I think it's inconsistent than from what we've seen and what we will see, because that is not a sentiment from someone who is, I refuse to think about what happens if he dies, or I
Yeah.
can't do this without him. To have that and then being able to say, to walk away and being like, "Oh, you know what? Like, I wish I could keep him, but it did not stop her," like leaving him.
Agreed. What it does is it displays a contrast between Selena's relationship with Kale, right? Because there were so
Yeah.
many times she probably should have walked away from Kale before she actually did. She only walked away from him because he forced her to.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it does show more strength on her part, but
Mhm.
I agree it's inconsistent with what we just saw in this life or death situation.
Yeah.
Earlier in the chapters that we didn't really talk about it, Selena realizes she hasn't really thought about Dorian and his magic, and she feels like a bad friend because, she was wrapped up in her own problems and her mental health, and quite frankly, there probably just wasn't enough space in the writing.
Yeah.
This is repeated, but on a grander scale, when Selena learns about the slaughter of the prisoners and slaves in Calicut and in Dovier. So the news has arrived, and Rowan is the one to break it to her. Quote, all she could see were the slaves she'd left behind, the faces of her people who had worked beside her people whom she had left behind, whom she had let herself forget, had let suffer, who had prayed for salvation, holding out hope that someone, anyone would remember them. She had abandoned them, and she had been too late. Now, obviously, this is coming from a place of Selena's self hatred, right? Again, this feeling that she's failed people, that she was powerless to help
Mhm.
at the tender age of 18.
Yep.
And it's going to exacerbate that self hatred. And, I don't think that it's realistic, but it is a step backwards in her healing process. And, we keep getting told her name, her life has always represented hope in the
Yeah.
eyes of others. And so it's just another way for her to feel like she's fallen short. Again, even though how could one person free all the slaves of 2 prison camps with tens of thousands of people?
I mean, yeah, I think that it also shows that she didn't get it done in time, right? Like, she didn't reach her goals in time. And why did she not reach her goals in time? Realistically, like, she wasn't gonna save them all, within seconds. However, what if she didn't get drunk for those 2 weeks? What if she had embraced training? What if she had
Mhm.
gone straight for help? There are plenty of what ifs that I can allow for. She doesn't give those what ifs. It just goes straight into, "I didn't save them, I left them." And it's like, "Well, babe, you were being carted away from being a slave yourself. You couldn't have turned around and be like, 'I'll take everyone
Yeah.
with me, please and thank you.'" There is guilt that I could very much understand. I think that I don't know how that would have impacted Selena's character development if she was to face the idea of, if I had just accepted my title of Aelin sooner,
Yeah.
this would have been fixed. So I don't know if it's like, if that would have been said,
Yeah.
is that too soon? Is that
Yeah.
too much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm TBD on it.
I agree. But it's something to think about,
Yeah.
again, from a writing
A
perspective.
lot to think about on a writing perspective.
Like, how are you bringing the reader along
Yeah.
to make it feel like every emotion is earned? I
Yes.
don't have to agree with how Selena feels,
Mhm.
but I need to understand why she feels the way she feels.
Yeah. And, I think there's a little bit more. There's a context clue that I'm about to read. I would have needed one more context clue, but this is why I think that some of it is her own rejection of her title is what is driving some of her guilt. Because while Rowan's trying to talk to her, quote, "He murmured her name too softly for the others to hear. And the sound of it, that name that had once been a promise to the world, the name she had spat on and defiled, the name she did not deserve." So, the slaves are dying just like her past self is dying, and she's being forced to face it. And again, like, Aelin could have been the one to make the difference, but she's running away from Aelin. That's not what SJM is writing. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
what we're inferring is right. I think what you and I are saying is the correct direction that SJM is probably taking this. Writing perspective, reader's perspective, you need to make that link a little bit clear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not implied heavily enough
Yeah,
for it to be obvious.
yeah. And it's okay for things to be obvious,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to character development. I think it's better to err on the side of obvious.
Yeah. I agree.
And if you're going to do symbolism, obvious symbolism.
Yeah. Agreed. So, speaking of symbolism, we get the imagery of Selena attacking the fortress barrier to get out her anger and pain. And, like Jack said earlier, it's her fighting against herself. It's Selena taking out anger on Aelin and Aelin taking out anger on Selena. And it also highlights how small and insignificant she is, which
Mhm.
I think is ironic given how she's just been feeling, right? That she could have made a difference.
Yeah.
And it's all conveyed through the use of hunger. Quote, Selena did not utter a sound as she unleashed her magic on the barrier, a blast that shook the trees and set the earth rumbling. She fed her power into the invisible wall, begging the ancient stones to take it to use it. The wards, as if sensing her intent, devoured her power whole, absorbing every last ember until it flickered, hungry for more. So, on one hand, you could say she might be strengthening the barrier. But on the other hand, these chapters have been focused on how strong Selena is, but her power is nothing more than an object to be consumed.
Mm.
And her magic is being put to better use by the things that are consuming it than Selena herself. And quite frankly, if you
Yeah.
can't even attack this fucking barrier, how are you supposed to save all those slaves? Like,
Yeah.
there's just something paradoxical about it that I appreciate from a brain perspective of Selena has all these really big feelings that she should have been better. And yeah, you have this great power, but it's actually still insignificant in some ways.
You made a point and you kind of breezed past it, and I kind of want to circle back to it. I like the idea that her power is only being consumed.
Yeah.
Like between the creature thingy stalking them and then this, like her power has only ever been consumed. So I just want to
Yeah.
like take a beat. Like that's a great point. And then, yeah, like I think it's a great moment to have Selena throw her power into this barrier. Like she's expressing it, she's going into it. But I see what you're saying where I don't know.
That was more ad-libbed. My main point was the consumption point.
Yeah, I
I
really
did.
liked the consumption point. I guide me more on the other ad lib point.
Oh, just this idea that for me,
Mhm.
love the consumption point as well. I think it's important. However, I think the other point I was trying to make is Selena believes she is big enough, important enough, strong enough to have prevented the death that has just occurred in Calicut and in Dovier if she hadn't been
Yeah.
pussyfooting around. My point is, yes, you have this big, strong power that everyone wants to consume, and yet you can't even break the wards on this fortress.
Oh, I didn't interpret it as her break like she's asking the wards to take it.
No, I know, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, if her power was so strong, it would overwhelm the wards,
Yeah, yeah,
and if it can't do that, how are you going to save tens of thousands of people?
yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know.
it goes back to like to me, I'm like, you rally the troops, your queen,
Yeah,
summon.
yeah.
All right. So we're in chapter 49 and we're in Rifthold and Kale is alone. Quote, for weeks now, Kale hadn't had any contact with any of his friends, allies, whatever they'd been. He's so sad and lonely and not having friends. But also, Kale does not know the difference between friends and allies.
Yeah,
He does not understand where what is one, what is the other. And he doesn't even have either one of those right now.
yeah. It's true. It is very true. So Kale is attending a lunch that the king is hosting for his court, and everybody's there. And the king has some great news to share about Calicut and Endovier, which we are already aware of. When he stands, quote, his black ring seeming to gobble up the midday sun streaming in through the towering windows. Now, this is not a new description. Anytime we have a description about the black rings or the stone that they're made from, it's always about gobbling up the light.
Mhm.
But what I think I like about it is its proximity to what we just saw with Selena and her power being consumed by the wards, about Selena's power being consumed by the creatures. There is this juxtaposition against this idea that instead of light driving away the darkness is eating the light.
Mhm.
And I just like that mirroring and that theme.
Yeah.
Dorian freaks out about this news, especially where it concerns Sorsha. And the fact that killing slaves represents, yeah, my dad is not going to be very merciful when it comes to this woman that I'm in love with. Quote, he took her face in his hands, pressing his brow against hers, needing that cool strength. He didn't know how he'd kept from weeping or vomiting or killing his father on the spot, but looking at her, breathing in her rosemary and mint scent, he knew why. I mean, good for him for not weeping or vomiting, because those are signs of his humanity and his weakness, but he's not that big, strong male he's been making himself out to be.
No, and it continues to not be that big, strong male because Dorian suddenly has this moment of wisdom. Quote, oh, Kale. He understood completely now why he had sent Selena to Wendelin. Understood that his return to Aniel, Kale had sold himself to get Selena to safety. I mean, yes, you should be groveling more. But even with all of this, he is still not doing what Kale did. Kale got Selena out. He did not run it by her. He did not talked to her about it. He manipulated situations and got her out. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that if Dorian really wanted Sorcia's safety, if he wasn't so concerned about his own convenience, if he suddenly understands Kale, Dorian has more power
Mm-hmm.
over someone who's even more weak and easy a position to manipulate than Aelin.
Mm-hmm.
He could have easily have gone to Sorcia's boss and been like, I need her removed and sent over here. And no
Yeah.
one would have questioned it.
And that's the thing is, as much as we feel like Dorian has grown, and he has grown, he is still ultimately who he has always been.
Yeah.
And that's a selfish person.
Yep.
Someone who's terribly alone and terribly selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
It's so sad.
Now, Adian, on the other hand, is a predator who has been reduced to a groveling servant, and he hates himself for it. Quote, I have Adian's teeth gleamed in the light. I have been forced to do many, many things, depraved, despicable things. Yet nothing made me feel as filthy as I did today, thanking that man for murdering my people. His disguise as the Wolf of the North or the Northern Wolf and this person who was manipulating the king made him feel powerful. And very quickly, that power has been stripped away from him by
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. And I mean, that's a really, I think it's been a very fun kind of descent
Yeah.
that SJM has written into this story that I believe 100%.
Yep.
I've enjoyed seeing that degression.
Yep.
I don't know if that's actually a word. What's also interesting is the King of Otterlin has even tainted the good things in life, like gratitude.
Yeah.
Like that is how pervasive his evil is.
I know, right? Okay, let's go into this iconic moment. I'll let you say your sentence, but don't read it. I want to play the audio. But go ahead, say your
The top sentence.
yes.
Okay. So we are about to encounter one of the most moving moments in this series, and I think about it often. But
Not just you.
Jack
All
wants
of
to play.
TikTok thinks about it often. Here it is.
They were still talking when the red curtains pulled back to reveal the seated orchestra, and it was a miracle they bothered to applaud for the conductor as he hobbled across the stage. That was when they noticed that every musician on the stage was wearing mourning black. That was when they shut up. And when the conductor raised his arms, it was not a symphony that filled the cavernous space. It was the song of Ilwe. Then the song of Fenharrow and Melisande and Terrasen, each nation that had people in those labor camps. And finally, not for pomp or triumph, but to mourn what they had become, they played the Song of Otterlin. When the final note finished, the conductor turned to the crowd, the musicians standing with him. As one, they looked to the boxes, to all those jewels bought with the blood of a continent. And without a word, without a bow or another gesture, they walked off the stage. The next morning, by royal decree, the theater was shut down. No one saw those musicians or their conductor again.
Chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's some of her best writing.
It's so good. And I think what makes it so good is the little acts of rebellion. Because this isn't the only time, right? In Crown of Midnight, she wrote about it twice as well, once involving music again. And it's the way that everyday people make a stand
Yeah.
in their own space, right? They can't move mountains, they can't destroy armies, but they can say
Mhm.
something within their space. And it's impactful.
Yeah.
And I love that out of 2 of those 3 times, it was with music
Yep.
because of how much Selena loves music.
Books are political. Art is political. And this is SJM busting out the talent. And this is another reference of writing a scene without having to write the scene.
Yeah.
You are able to summarize it and you can make it one of the most powerful moments. You just got to be good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like last week, our breadcrumbs and broomsticks segment, because it's super spoilery, is going to air on a separate episode on Thursday. That is also where we will discuss listener thoughts and interpretations we've been collecting through your emails, DMs, and answers to our prompts. But for now, let's dive into our question of the week.
So, Jack, how are the writing techniques used in these chapters different, and what do they achieve?
They're mature. They're a lot more mature. I think the writing techniques are different. I think they're more mature, and I think that it reflects the maturity of the story and of the characters that's growing. So early on, I really struggled with Aelin is only 18 years old. This is a YA novel. What the fuck? Like, this does not compute. There's moments in the way that things are summarized, in the way that she's showing these acts of rebellion, the way that her summary is simplistic, but she's spending time in the summaries. Just spending time with Rowan and Aelin is doing so much, and it's showing a level of maturity to the story and the book itself, removing it from the YA concept. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that the writing within the second part is very different from the writing from the first part.
I agree. I think you sparked a thought for me, which is the first part of this book really felt like a traditional YA novel in the sense of we got to do a thing, we got a training
Yeah.
sequence, it's got to move from here to here to here, we have a mystery to solve. But none of the connection that needed to happen was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now in part 2, we're finally, and I get it, she had a lot of time that needed to be covered, and that's why it's sped up. But we're now getting things slowed down. We're now getting
Yeah.
things, dwelling in the feelings, dwelling in the moments that are impactful,
Mm-hmm.
that make it feel like a different book.
I think that's it, right? Is that SJM is good at character, at emotions. She's great at making us feel things, like just that, the orchestra, we could feel it. When you're busy hitting the beats, which is what we kept talking about in the first half, it was a focus on the beats, not so much for us personally on the emotions.
Yeah.
Right now, the focus is now on the emotions, that if she is hitting beats, I'm not even, it's not dawning on me. I'm busy being in their emotions.
Right.
And that's the main difference, I feel like, is that the writing has now shifted to the focus on emotions.
Which is closer to the SGM we know and love.
That's her bread and butter.
Yep.
So that's that. We're wrapping this up because we have to keep recording. I mean, I'm in no rush, luckily. I'm now comfy. I would like us to end, but
Yeah.
I'm in a better zone. But we need to give breadcrumbs and broomsticks over a half hour of time.
Yep. So let's sign off.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us Thursday for our breadcrumbs and broomsticks discussion of today's chapters.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. And don't forget to join us by subscribing to the Subtext Society Journal.substack.com to get more insights into the romantasy and romance world. Bye.
Bye.